The moment I walked into the restaurant, my stomach dropped. I had that hollow, sinking feeling that something had already gone wrong. The polished floor reflected the dim glow of chandeliers, the murmur of other diners drifting across the room like an ominous prelude. And there she was, my wife Claire, sitting at the head of the table, her posture unervingly perfect, her eyes flicking to her phone for the third time in as many minutes. I froze at the threshold, my mind racing. Something in the way she held herself, the tight line of her lips, the way her fingers tapped on the table, told me she was waiting for more than just my arrival. She was waiting to make me the punchline of a cruel little spectacle. "Finally," she said, her tone a little too light, like a carefully measured greeting. "I was starting to wonder if you'd actually show up." I swallowed. "Traffic," I said, though my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. Her laugh was soft, airy, mocking without quite crossing the line. I sat opposite her, noting the way the candlelight flickered across her face, highlighting every curve, every imperfection, every careful mask she had been wearing for years. "So," she said, leaning back, glancing at the waiter who was hovering politely, "I've been thinking about us." The pause stretched like a rubber band. My heart pounded in my chest. Something in me wanted to jump, to grab her hand, to demand, "Tell me it's not true." But I knew the truth had a rhythm all its own, and it often announced itself quietly before exploding. "What about us?" asked, trying to sound casual. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I think it's time we were honest. About everything." Something inside me clenched. I had seen it before in movies, in whispered stories from friends, even in nightmares. The calm before a betrayal is unveiled. I looked at her, really looked, and the truth I had been ignoring hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't going to be a conversation. This was going to be a performance. "I've been feeling like maybe we're..." She paused, and the world seemed to tilt. "Not meant for each other." The words barely landed before the waiter approached with menus, but I didn't need to hear anything else. I felt my hands go cold. I could see the dinner wasn't just a dinner. It was her stage, and she planned to humiliate me here in public, while strangers sipped their wine and pretended not to stare. I leaned back in my chair, my mind spinning. I had two choices: crumble, beg, look like a fool, or teach her a lesson she wouldn't forget. "I see," I said softly, my voice calm, unervingly calm. "You want to reject me." Her eyes widened, just slightly, just enough to reveal that she hadn't expected me to recognize it. It's not like that," she began. "Oh no, Claire," I interrupted gently, my gaze fixed firmly on hers. "You planned this. You chose this moment. You wanted witnesses. You wanted to make me feel small. And yet here I am, listening. And now, I think it's only fair you understand what rejection really feels like." She blinked. "What are you talking about?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small envelope, thick with paper. I hadn't planned on doing this tonight. Not like this, but something inside me snapped. The betrayal, the lies, the months of pretending everything was fine. It all needed a reckoning. "What's that?" she asked, her voice tight now, betraying a flicker of uncertainty. "Your life," I said. "Every word, every choice you made that led you here. Consider this, a mirror." I slid the envelope across the table. She picked it up hesitantly, her perfectly manicured fingers trembling slightly as she opened it. Inside were photographs, emails, texts, little notes I'd discovered over the last few weeks. Every clandestine meeting, every lie she had told, every smile she had shared with someone else while pretending to share a life with me, all documented. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Danny. You shouldn't." "Shoo," I said, holding up a hand. "Just read. Take your time." The room felt impossibly silent, the murmur of other diners fading into a dull roar. I watched her face change. The flash of recognition, the flush of guilt, the creeping horror of someone realizing they had underestimated their spouse. I had loved her with every fiber of my being. I had believed her, trusted her, believed in a future we had painted together. And yet here she was, planning my humiliation over a salmon dinner, as if our years meant nothing. She skimmed through the first few pages, then paused. Her eyes widened in disbelief. How did you? I looked, I said softly. I listened. I watched. I loved you enough to care. And I hated that the person I loved was capable of this. And so tonight, you get a taste of what it feels like to be exposed, to be stripped bare, to realize someone knows every secret you thought was hidden. Her hand shook. The envelope trembled in her grasp. Danny. I didn't. You did. I interrupted again. You did. And now you know. She looked around, suddenly aware of the eyes that might be on us. I could see the panic rising, the realization that she had misjudged me, that she had assumed I would crumble, that I would beg her to stay, that I would make a scene. And yet here I was, calm, composed, and in control. The irony wasn't lost on me. I didn't mean. Stop, I said. Don't try to explain it away. You wanted to reject me publicly, to make me small. You wanted me to be humiliated. And now, for the first time, you are the one exposed. Her eyes filled with tears, not because she had been caught, but because she had misjudged my strength, my resolve, my pain. And in that moment, I realized something bitterly beautiful. Betrayal is not just about what the other person does. It's about how they underestimate the one they betray. She sat back silent. I took a slow, steadying breath. I wanted to yell, to scream, to collapse, but I didn't. I wanted her to understand. And silence often says more than words. Finally she spoke, voice barely above a whisper. Danny. I think it's over, Claire, I said. And I mean it. Not because of what you said here, but because of the truth you revealed through your actions. You made a choice, and I'm making mine. Her lips trembled, but no words came. The waiter lingered awkwardly. And I realized that we had drawn attention, but I didn't care. Nothing mattered but the clarity of the moment, the raw honesty of the revelation. I stood up, gently pushed the envelope toward her, and gathered my coat. Goodbye, Claire. I hope one day you understand the gravity of what you tried to do. And I hope you remember this moment, the moment you saw what rejection feels like. Her hands shook as I left the table. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Every step away from her, every inch closer to the door, was a reclamation of myself, my dignity, and my future. Outside, the cold night air hit me like a shockwave. I inhaled deeply, letting the city sounds wash over me, letting the neon signs blur into streaks of color. I had lost a wife, yes, but I had gained clarity. I had survived betrayal without losing myself. In the weeks that followed, I found myself replaying the dinner in my mind. The way her face had shifted from smugness to shock, the way her hands had trembled, the silence that had said more than any argument ever could. And though the pain lingered, it was tempered by a hard truth. Love is not only about trust, but about self-respect. I realized that sometimes, the most powerful act of love is letting go. Letting go of someone who chose deception over honesty, humiliation over empathy, performance over partnership. And in letting go, I had claimed my own freedom. Months later, I found myself walking past that same restaurant. The memories tried to claw their way back, the pain threatening to reopen, but I kept walking. I had learned something vital that night. Betrayal is devastating, yes, but it can also be a teacher if you have the courage to listen. I smiled faintly to myself, the city lights reflecting in my eyes. I was still whole. I was still capable of love. And I was free. Some wounds never fully heal, but some lessons last a lifetime. And in that night of quiet revelation, Claire had taught me one of the most important truths about love, pain, and resilience. That sometimes rejection is not the end of a story, but the beginning of reclaiming yourself.